To be empowered is to just share that story, to stand in your power and claim who you are without judgment and without shame. We've been taught so long to be ashamed of things. And it's like, be who you are, flailingly, unconditionally, be who you are, stand in your power. And I think by telling your story, that's the first step in doing that.
Hi there. Welcome to the Empowered and Embodied Show. I'm Kim Romain.
And I'm Louise Neal. We're two transformational coaches who are also fellow travelers on the path of growth and self-discovery. And we're inviting you along for the ride.
That's right. We're right here in the trenches with you, navigating the ups and downs of life. And each week we'll be sharing our own experiences, bringing you conversations with amazing guests, and exploring insights and strategies that have helped us find more clarity, confidence, and ease in our lives.
And trust us, we do not have it all figured out. We're learning and growing right alongside you.
So if you're ready to rise above the chaos, doubt, and confusion that sometimes life throws our way,
and step into a more empowered and embodied version of yourself,
then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Kim Romain, joined as always by the lovely and incomparable.
That's me. I'm Louise. And today we are joined by two amazing, passionate women. The Passionistas are here. So excited to have this conversation, ladies. Welcome.
I'm Amy, and I can not wait to talk to both of you. We've known Kim for a while, and we love her, and Louise. We're so excited to meet you, right, Nan?
I am Nancy, and I'm really excited to be here. I can't wait for this conversation.
Yay. And for those of you who are not actually seeing our faces, like we're all beaming. We're just very excited to be here. Before we hit record, we were talking about one of the interviews that Amy and Nancy had the pleasure of doing, and it was with Dr. Jane Goodall. And so that may give you just an inkling of the tenacity, because tenacity is part of it, the passion, the joy, and the love that these two sisters pour into everything that they do. So before we go further in this conversation and love fest, I'm going to share a little bit about the Passionistas. Sisters and business partners, Amy and Nancy Harrington, are the co-founders of the Passionistas Project, an inclusive community where passion-driven women, mostly from marginalized communities, come to get support, find their purpose, and feel empowered to transform their lives and change the world. They have created a space where women from all backgrounds can come together and support each other in the areas of business development, personal growth, and social impact based on the principles of sisterhood, loyalty, trust, empathy, vulnerability, and joy. Both co-founders walked away from high-profile jobs in Hollywood to work together. Amy was the first woman in the history of the entertainment industry to hold the position of vice president of post-production and visual effects. While at Warner Brothers, she worked on 250 feature films, including one of my favorites, the Matrix franchise. Nancy had a successful graphic design business and theater company before creating Academy Award campaigns for Miramax. Now, through their Global Passionistas Project, podcast, and Power of Passionistas Summit, they strive to inspire women to follow their passions and join forces in the fight for equality for all. I get goosebumps just reading that.
I do.
I mean, you've lived this life, but like hearing about it and hearing about talking to amazing humans doing amazing work in the world when she was alive, Dr. Goodall, but all of the people that you touch every day, all of these lives. Like, did you know when you were younger, when the two of you were like little baby sisters, did you know that you were going to go and create these kind of ripples in the world?
Absolutely no idea. Absolutely not. We were very, very shy, very, very introverted indoor girls. Amy and I have been best friends since the day she was born. The family lore is that I ordered her, that I put in a request with my mother that she have a baby so that my mother would not be lonely when I went to kindergarten. And so lo and behold, 9 months later, Amy was born. Coincidence? I don't know. But she's been my best friend ever since. But we spent our childhood, we had an incredibly creative family. Our parents met at art school. We spent our childhood surrounded by music, movies, and television, and books, and art. And we had such a creative family, but we were shy. We didn't have a lot of friends. We spent our time with each other and our cousins and our siblings. So no, absolutely no idea that I would spend my days, first of all, talking to people, but also creating this global community of women that lift each other up and support one another. Not an inkling.
Yeah, I actually realized recently, one thing I realized recently, and I haven't even said this to Nancy, is my birthday is 2468.
Oh,
The doctor told our dad, I'm the youngest of 5, and I came early. I wasn't supposed to be born on 2468. I ended up being delivered by the doctor on his last day as the doctor, and then he was going to go into private practice. So I think I came so that my mom would be okay with her doctor she was comfortable with. But the doctor told my dad, like, she's a lucky baby because she's born on 2468. And then it popped into my head recently, like, I'm a lucky baby and I'm supposed to do something. I was put here to do something special. And I know that I was put here to do something special with Nancy, because Nancy and I have always been inseparable. So that occurred to me recently, like, oh, Dr. Fisher. I'm fulfilling Dr. Fisher's prophecy.
So, what has it been like to start like the Passionistas? Like, where did this seed come from? Because it's not at all what your previous lives were about, or where is it?
No.
What's interesting is that we've used so many of the skills we have acquired along the way. After we left our jobs in Hollywood, we went on this really long, circuitous path of odd jobs. We left our jobs at the same time, not sure what we were going to do. We just knew we wanted to do it together because we knew no matter what, we could trust each other and we'd have each other's backs. So we did all sorts of odd jobs and landed in the world of celebrity interviewing. And we loved it. Imagine the 2 girls from Braintree, Massachusetts, who watched Laverne and Shirley every week, sitting in Penny Marshall's house, interviewing Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams together. Um,
so
talk about
cool.
mind blowing.
So
So
cool.
yeah, so cool. So we love doing that, but at the same time, we felt like we wanted to do something more important and more impactful. Um, in 2016, when the Me Too movement was really at its height, we thought, well, let's use our skills as interviewers to interview women who aren't in the spotlight, the women who are doing wonderful things, but no one is hearing about. And so that's when we started the podcast, Passionistas Project podcast. And immediately fell in love with the women we were talking to. You sit across from Julie Louis-Dreyfus for 5 hours and interview her, and you think, oh, we're best friends. We're gonna hang out together on the weekends, and then you never hear from Julie Louis-Dreyfus ever again. Every single passionista that we have spoken to for the last 6 years has become part of our sisterhood. It really is amazing connections. So it grew from there. And, we started the Power Passionista Summit in 2020. And then about 2 years ago, we realized we needed to do something to keep the conversations from the summit going. And that's when we started the online sisterhood. And we never imagined, well, we did imagine. We imagined exactly what we thought it would be. And people were like, really? You're going to be able to do that? And we did. We built it. It's a beautiful space for women really support one another and really come together.
It's interesting because so when Louise was saying, like, did you imagine this, right? How did this come to be, particularly from what you did before? And yet what you did before does seem to echo what you're doing now, because it's the stories are still so central to what you're doing and what you're sharing into the world. Why are stories so important?
Well, I think they're what make us care about each other. I mean, as kids watching TV shows, we made these connections with these characters and we fell in love with them, like Nancy said, and then you actually get to meet Penny Marshall and Cindy Williams, and it's like, oh my God, they're real human beings, but they also have that dynamic that you see on TV. So you can connect with these characters through fiction, but through real vulnerable interviewing, storytelling, that's how we really get to know each other. And one of the things we're proudest of with the sisterhood is at the core of it, that's what it's about. It's giving a voice to the women, especially again from marginalized communities, who always tell us people talk for them or they talk about them, but they never let them speak for themselves. So we let women with disabilities have a space where they can share what's going on in their lives, and Black women and Indigenous women and LGBTQ people, women over 50. We all know that feeling that you hear about, and then as some of us have approached that age, it's like you do start to feel a little bit invisible when you hit a certain age. And we have such a diverse community that we have women from different political backgrounds and different you know just different ethnic backgrounds and experiences, different financial situations. And they might come into the space not really understanding what it might be like to be, let's say, like a Latina woman in the United States right now. But because they've built a friendship talking about, meditation or tapping or some other very neutral topic, they've become friends. And now when someone says, this is my experience as a Latina woman, the other woman goes, my God, I love you. And I didn't know you were going through that. That's horrible. And they look at things in a different way. So by being vulnerable and really sharing your experiences, you're getting it out there, you're getting it off your chest, which we always want people to feel like they can do without any repercussions. But also you're educating other people in a way that they're not going to get from reading a newspaper or, reading a textbook. Like the connection is so deep that it really is changing minds and attitudes and making people understand each other more.
And
How
I
do you
also think
model
there's
this for
I
them?
also think there's a power in letting other women know they're not alone. I think when you hear someone else's story and you can relate to it, then there's the other effect of, somebody else has gone through what I'm going through. I'm not the only one. What happened to you when you went through that? I think that's a really important thing about storytelling too.
Yeah.
How do you model the storytelling, but also the vulnerability that you're talking about? How do you model that for the sisterhood or beyond?
We didn't for a really long time. I think because we came from the world of behind the camera,
Mhm.
we were very closed off. We felt like to be professional, we had to be buttoned up and not share too much. And also we went into that this was about the other women. This wasn't about us. This was about sharing the stories of other women. And it wasn't until we realized that the women and people kept saying, you should get up front. I mean, when we first launched our website, we didn't even have a photograph of us on the whole website. And we kept getting advice from people like, no, you need to be the face of this. And we were like, no, it's not about us. So we finally realized that everyone was right and that we needed to be vulnerable. We needed to share our story and that our story was in fact interesting. We used to think, who cares about us? We're not that interesting. And it's like, no, we are very interesting. And also when we cracked open, I think a really big turning point was the fires last year in Los Angeles. We thankfully were not personally affected by it. We were not within the range of the fires, although at one point during that week, the entire city of Los Angeles was surrounded by multiple fires. So you felt like wherever you turned, it was very terrifying time. Fortunately, we did not lose any property, although we knew a lot of people that did, and it was still are without a house. But during that time, so many women in the community reached out to us. And so we started posting daily in the sisterhood about what was going on, what we were feeling, what it was like. And I think that vulnerability really cracked the sisterhood wide open because we sort of gave other women permission to share what was really happening in their lives, not the fluffy social media. This is the great upside of my life, but the real stuff. Like, this is really what's going on. And I think that was a turning point in the sisterhood where women really started sharing more and connecting. So I do think by us modeling that vulnerability, it has made a big difference in the sisterhood.
Yeah, I think that's true in everywhere, right? Like the more that we step in and we start talking about what's really going on, the more we start to connect with our own story and actually like get those words outside of us, right? That yes, there's a lot of connection that goes on, and there's so much self-discovery and so much of like this coming home that happens to ourselves when we actually tell our own story. I think it's pretty amazing, because I hear that too in the circles that I'm in and the folks that I work with, is that, you know, yes, it is about building community, and there's so much self-discovery that goes on when you start telling your story as well.
It's funny, we just finished a workshop. We do workshops, and we have a TV network in the sisterhood, and so this workshop is part of that series. And it was a woman who talks about business finance, Claudia Cordova Rucker, and she had a guest on who is a bookkeeper. And that might sound uninteresting to some people, or a topic that freaks people out. But this woman, Joni, that Claudia was interviewing with, had been an entrepreneur, and she and her husband lost everything. And ultimately she became a bookkeeper, and she was in tears talking about her experience. And it was so emotional and so relatable. And it brings a heart to a conversation that otherwise seems cold and about numbers. And I just thought, this is what the women that we have attracted and that we are attracted to are all about. It's like, it doesn't matter what the topic is. Like, who has a vulnerable conversation about bookkeeping? But there are so many, like we know so many women who are struggling right now with the economy the way it is to keep their businesses afloat. And it was like, oh my God, this is going to help so many people, because she was willing to go there. She said, no matter what form or letter you get, I've received it. So I can tell you when to panic and when not to panic. And it was like, oh my, that is so refreshing and so insightful. And like, here we are, like I'm in tears listening to a conversation about bookkeeping, because that vulnerability was part of her story, and it was beautiful.
It sounds like because she allowed herself to be human, publicly human, right? And we spend so much of our lives trying to keep that humanity locked away. Why do we do that? I mean, I have my thoughts, but why do you think we do? Like, why do we do that? Why do we keep our humanity locked away?
Way. That's how we were brought up, right? We were brought up to be polite and to be happy and I know especially in our family, we had a very loving and very creative family. Our parents were so supportive, but our dad also suffered from mental health issues. He definitely was undiagnosed for many years with depression and anxiety, um and it made our lives difficult at times, but we were not supposed to talk about it, right? You don't talk about that. You don't tell people that. I mean, to the point where when he died, at his funeral, his mental health came up, and most of the people at the funeral were like, "What? What are you talking about?" And we had cousins come up to us and say, what was wrong with his mental health? What do you mean?" And it's like, these are people who knew him all his life, but you don't talk about those things, right? That's how we were raised. And then I think social media made it worse, because social media is the place where you go and you post, all the pictures of your vacations and your food and your talented kids and how perfect your life is. And so everyone looks at it and says like, oh, my life must be really bad because I don't have those things. And so then you're afraid to talk about it because you think everyone else's life is perfect. So I just, I think it's society. I think we're all sick of it. And I think everyone's finally realizing like they can't keep up the facade anymore,
They don't want to. I think
Right.
they
Yeah.
don't want to.
Yeah. And I also think in between childhood and social media, a lot of us went into the working world in organizations or situations that were very male dominated, and we loved men. We enjoyed working with men. It was really fun, but you're supposed to be you're one of the only women, if not the only woman, a lot. And if you show any emotion, like for me, when I worked at the studio, I didn't want anybody to ever think of me as the girl in the room. I just wanted to blend in and be one of the guys so that wasn't a factor. And so if I showed the slightest bit of emotion, I was being girly. And so I had to shut that down as much as possible. Sometimes it's impossible to not just lose it. But, for the most part, it was like, just be a robot, be one of the guys, so that they're not going, oh, well, she's a girl. She's just a girl. And so I think a lot of women we've talked to have experienced that. Like, I've got to blend in. And so we aren't vulnerable. And then we also were working so hard for that one seat at the table that if we let anybody know that we're not 100%, 200% on top of things and, completely confident, and I don't have any questions and I know everything, everything's under control, then you're going to get replaced either by a guy or by the next woman that's in line, rightfully, to have a seat at the table. So I think that we shut down, a lot of us learned to shut down for business purposes any sense of vulnerability.
Yeah. I hear that a lot as well. As I work with women and workplaces to start talking about menopause and perimenopause, proud and out loud, and figuring out what that looks like, there's a lot of folks that are like, are you sure? Right? Like, really? And it's like, yeah, absolutely. This transition that we go through impacts us in so many ways. The more we can talk about it, the more we can support each other through it. And it's not just women that support us, right? It's our communities, and it's everyone who knows and loves us as well. But it is really interesting the reactions I start to get around like how can you say that? And it's like, how can we not? Because it really is something that's impacting us in our careers and in our relationships. And we need to be talking about it.
It's so interesting. There was only one time I ever heard the word menopause mentioned when I was at Warner Brothers. And it was a guy who said it to me about another woman who was working there. And he said it in a way that was not supportive or complimentary.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy I had issues with anyway. And I just said, you and I do not talk about those things. This is not a conversation we're going to have. But it's literally, when you said that, it was like, that's the only time man or woman, ever heard anybody say that word.
Well, nobody talks about menstruation. Nobody talks about, none of our human, it's so funny. I was just having this conversation earlier today. There was such a big thing about when the book came out, everybody poops.
Right.
Because now we're talking about poop. And it's like, could you imagine if we just normalized the fact that we're human, that we poop, that we eat, that we have gas from time to time, that we have sleep issues, that we have sex, that we could we just normalize this? Because we're all human. We all have something. And my life would be so much different if I had had people all along the way that I could actually have real life conversations about like sexuality. And just like, what is normal? Is it okay to have this much or this little sex? Like, is that okay? Is it okay that my body's doing this thing? Should I see a doctor? I don't know. Is it wrong or is it normal? If we could just talk about this.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And that's why we wanted this to be a sisterhood that we were creating. Because the only people I've ever been able to have those conversations with are my sisters, not my brother. I love my brother. My brother's amazing. But if we mention anything feminine, he's like, oh, like he just freaks him out. God bless his heart. 4 girls and 1 boy. But the only people I've ever, whether it's like stress at work or, health or body stuff or sexuality, like you were saying, it's like the only people I've ever been able to be that vulnerable with are my sisters. So when we started, it was like, that's the kind of space we want to create where it's okay. No one's going to judge you. Like recently, one of the women posted, she's probably late 30s, early 40s, and she posted the title of her post was this a hot flash? And then she went on paragraph after paragraph about what she had experienced and whether it was a hot flash or not. And we started our reply with like, we are not professionals, but from our own experience, it sounds like a hot flash. And other women commented, and it was like, oh, that's so amazing that she feels safe here to share that, because it is like, when the first time that happens, if I hadn't had my sisters who had already told me what they went through, I would have been like, what is going on?
As an only child, I have no idea what that means.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I do. I had to find that. And I think, so you used a key word there, safe. And so safety, what does safety mean in each of our lives? Because we know, and if you're particularly bringing in individuals from marginalized communities, there's a whole lot of people who have never experienced what safety actually feels like in their bodies. So to get to that place where you can be regulated enough, where you've had enough support from the community, or at least members of the community, to begin to feel and experience what safety is, so you can ask a question. That's huge.
And some of the most active members of our community are women of color, LGBTQ women, women from, indigenous communities and Latina communities. And they all, one of them actually said to us, she's a dear friend, we've known her for years. And we told her we were going to do this a few years ago. And she's like, that's great, you guys, I'm behind you 100%. And then 6 months into it, she's like, oh my God, you actually pulled it off. I didn't think you could. We're like, well, thank you for not saying that to us when we started. She'd just she'd never experienced it. Like, she'd been in all these different groups and she'd never seen people feel like they could really let their guard down and not be jumped on, not have that social media thing where people jump down your throat or cram your opinion. And we've had, in a year and a half, we had one tough conversation. We had like one tough meeting, and it was like heightened. It was a heightened time in the world when it happened. And we reached out to every single person afterwards directly and said, what did we do? What could we do better? And how do you feel? Like, what do you need us to do to make sure that if that kind of thing happens again, that you feel supported? And, and they gave us feedback, but they basically, what we ended up doing in that conversation was we let the women speak for themselves. We didn't try to defend somebody else's position or explain what we thought it was like to walk in the shoes of someone whose life we hadn't experienced. And because we let them all talk for themselves without filtering it, they all felt like, no, I'm good. I was heard. I said what I needed to say and I was heard. And it was all very polite. No one raised their voices or anything. But it was like, we need to have these kind of conversations. Like, we realize, like, we need to embrace this and welcome this, because at the end of the day, everybody felt okay with the fact that that's the way the conversation went. And we're all just so afraid of stepping on each other's toes or saying the wrong thing or hurting each other's feelings. As long as we know that everybody's coming at it with the right intentions and with an outcome that is to the good of the most people possible, then like we should be doing that more. It's like we should talk more about our bodies and sex and all that stuff. We need to know we have a place where we can go and be like, I need to educate myself on this.
Yeah. So what's the big dream for the Passionistas?
Just keep welcoming more and more women in. The more we get to know each other and the more we hear each other's stories, the better this world will be. We are true believers that women should be running the world. So that's our goal.
Yeah, we have so many outlets for women to tell their stories, whether it's as simple as putting a comment in a thread in the sisterhood, or being in one of our anthology books, or being a guest on our podcast, or our power Passionistas, who are kind of our resident experts. They get to have self-produced TV shows on our Passionistas TV Women's Empowerment Network. And we have a podcast network that's only women hosted and non-binary hosted shows. And just to keep building the platforms for more women just to tell their stories and to share their experiences. So all the mechanisms are in place, and now it's just a matter of really building it and growing it, like Nancy said. And we're helping women write their memoirs too, which has been really exciting, like actually, and all of it's using our interview skills. So you're not staring at a blank screen, like we're having conversations. And the woman who's farthest along, we just had a great conversation with her the other day, and she posted on social media, like, I can't believe like how far she's been talking about writing a book for 10 years. And she sent us something the other day and we're like, this is a book. Like, what you just sent us is like the first 35 pages of a book. And she was like, oh my God. So, like, to see the bigger stories unfolding is also like so cool.
You used a word in there that is also in the name of our show. You said Women's Empowerment Network. What does it mean to you to be empowered?
I think to be empowered is to just share that story. I think that to stand in your power and claim who you are without judgment and without shame. We've been taught so long to be ashamed of things, and it's like, be who you are flailingly. I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Unconditionally. Be who you are. Stand in your power. And I think by telling your story, that's the first step in doing that.
And I also think it's helping our sisters who maybe don't have the same opportunities as some of the others do to find that equity, to give them the platforms, to give them the stage and the microphone so that they are heard. I think empowerment really comes from yourself and really stepping into something yourself. But I also know that there are so many women that have tried and they get pushed aside. And for me, I think part of like having the network is about getting as many diverse voices as we can to be able to share their stories in a way that they're going to book publishers and they're being told nobody wants to hear the story of a Black woman with a disability. And it's like, well, we know that woman's story and it is fascinating and powerful. And so if we can give her a platform, we will do that. So I think part of it for us is the way we can help them empower themselves is just to support them.
Especially since so many voices are being silenced right now.
Totally. We ain't seen nothing yet.
You talked a little bit about what's coming up for like the Passionistas, and then what? Like, and what happens when we are all together, when we are in a sisterhood? I'm really curious. Does it go on forever? What are you really hoping for?
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think of it as we can only do so much. I think of it as like what the limitlessness of it. Like I'm blown away. Like when we stepped onto this call to do the interview today, and Kim, the first thing I walked into was mid-conversation of Kim saying she's going to meet a Passionista in person because you live in the same town. We are finding women who are collaborating with their businesses and women that we didn't necessarily expect. Like, oh, those three found each other and they're doing this huge program together. Or we had one that moved to a small town in Colorado and there was a Passionista there. They both are looking for friendship and connection. They're now like really good friends and they hang out all the time. We have a Passionista that's running for Congress in the United States, and people from both sides of the political spectrum are donating money to her campaign and supporting her and spreading the word about it. We're going to have a talent show for our holiday party because it's like there's just so much. Every time someone posts like I play the oboe, we're like, what? There's another musician in the sisterhood or a comedian or a poet. So we're gonna, enjoy each other's talents. And I just feel like when Nancy and I started the Passionistas, we were always like, Nancy and I are the Passionistas. That is our brand. We are the Passionistas. And nobody else was a Passionista. It was like, this is our identity. And now there are Passionistas literally all over the world except Antarctica, which we're working on. But to know that the word means something to each of them individually, but also has become something more than just this like cutesy little word that, was floating around is powerful. And I just feel like it has a life beyond us. God forbid when the day comes, I don't know if someone would ever officially take it over, but certainly I know the legacy of it is going to live on. And I think that legacy is connection and understanding and support and advocacy. So I feel like our work in that regard is done and that it's kind of out of our control at this point. It has a life of its own. So we've got our part of it and we're running that part of it. But beyond that, I know it's out there in the world. And we're starting to have people come to us and say like, oh, I've heard of the Passionistas that we never would have expected. Or like you, Louise, like, it's like, oh, we know Kim, but we get on with you today and we're like, oh, we all know Julie. Like the circle it has connected and it's expanding in one way, but it's also getting smaller in one way. Cause like we know women all around the world who are starting to know each other, not necessarily through us or maybe because of us, but as some other connection too. And it's like, it's mind-boggling. So I think the Passionistas is going to go on and on, even when we go visit Dr. Jane.
Sounds like you're the caretakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like,
Yeah.
Birthed it into the world, and now you're taking care of it until it does whatever it's going to do once it leaves home. I don't know.
yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So we have gone down a lot of different paths today. I would love to know people who are listening, who are trying to figure out, particularly in the world that we're living in right now. How do I find myself? How do I find community? How do I, right? They're coming with so many different questions and things that are on their heart. What are the threads, or what are the things that we've talked about today that you really want to make sure that people are hearing?
I think one of the biggest things we advocate for in the sisterhood is listening. So I think if you listen to other people, to your heart, to yourself, you will find that community, and you will broaden that community, because if you're listening with empathy, you will expand your circle and you will welcome more people into your circle. So I've always thought the key to everything is listening to other people. I'm a pretty quiet person, if you know me. Amy's the fun sister. I'm the quiet sister. And I I've found that it's because I like to listen. I like to just hear what other people have to say. So I think that's the key. I think and again, like I said, listen to yourself too. Sit quietly, reflect, journal, think about what's really important to you, you know, and that's the way you discover it.
Yeah. And for me, it's, you know, I've said this, I may have said this earlier in the show. I won the lottery when I was born. I entered into a family of 6 other people who my parents and my siblings, my best friends, the most supportive, creative, wonderful, loving people. Like, it blows my mind that they're my family and that I get to be a part of it. And so I've never felt alone a day in my life. I've always known there's somebody out there who will care for me if something goes wrong, and I'm getting emotional about it. And I just want people to know they don't have to be alone, that I know there's lots of places out there that promise whatever, business connections or whatever. And I'm not saying we're everybody's cup of tea, but if you are a woman or a non-binary person and you are feeling alone because you're building a business by yourself, or because you're an artist and you don't go into an office every day, or you're really passionate about a cause and nobody else gets it. There are so many people in our sisterhood who feel that way and have come to us and have felt less alone in that journey. And we see it unfolding every day, and they tell us that every day. And so I just want people to know this is not a sales pitch. There's a free membership you can join. There's premiums and all other opportunities, but there is a free membership you can join right now where you can feel less alone. And so I just want people, I hate the thought of anybody out there struggling and feeling disconnected. And I want them to know that there's a place for them.
I feel that so deeply. To know that there is, again, that word caretaking just keeps coming back. You have this family of origin in which you felt cared for. And that is the gift you're giving to the world. And in particular, women and non-binary individuals who are maybe not experiencing that in other places in their lives.
Yeah, and we know all of our members, we know what they need. We're able to connect people. Like, we're able to say, like, oh, you live in, Durango, Colorado. Oh my God, so does so-and-so. You got to meet, or you are a you're a finance person and you're looking for people who need help with their finance. Oh my God, we just talked to so-and-so and they're struggling yesterday. Like, we know how to Nancy and I always joke that we don't want to have a Mary Tyler Moore party whenever we have a party, because, Mary Tyler Moore would throw a party and the only people would show up are the 3 people from the office.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Nancy and I have this fear of having a Mary Tyler Moore party. And the sisterhood is really a party, and we're the kind of people that go to a party and we stand in the corner and we talk to each other. We don't want anyone to feel like they're standing in the corner if they want to talk to other people at the party. If they like to stand in the corner, 100% support that, and you can do that too. But if you're the kind of person who's really trying to connect and you're just afraid to, like, step into the center of the party alone, we've got your hand, we'll hold your hand, we'll make some introductions, we'll chat with all of you until you feel with us okay backing away, So we get it, and we are you, we've been there. But luckily we had each other, and now we want you to know, if you join us, you're our sister, and this is what sisters do.
Yeah. I hear so much in there, that thread of storytelling too, right? If you show up, I'm happy to share my story, but I want to listen. To Nancy's point, I want to listen to your story.
Yeah.
And that it's I think for me in this conversation, that idea of leaning into the vulnerability of sharing your story wherever you feel just a smidge of safety. And the fact that there are communities like yours out there, as well as individuals like the two of you, who create the space to share those stories.
Thank you. Well, I think that's why we love you so much. We've come into your community and we've seen the way you invite people in and the way you navigate through conversations that aren't always easy and make people feel safe and seen and heard, and it's beautiful. It's making us crazy, Louise, that we don't know more about you and that we're being interviewed. And I'm like, I just want to ask Louise questions. Can I just have, what's going on with Louise? I want to know about that. So, but yeah, I mean, you two are doing it too. We appreciate it.
Louise, what are some of the things that you've heard in our conversation today that you're carrying out with you?
When we talk about what it means to listen on the other side of that, how does it feel to be really heard, right? And when we create these spaces for women to really be seen and heard, that changes who they are. And they take that with them and they share that, right? In their communities, in their lives, with their family and friends. And then they start to create these other small, safer places for other women to be seen and heard. And it's this amazing propagation, right? And ripples that go out. And it touches my heart so much to hear these stories that you help people tell, and that you hold and that you give them back to them so that they can take their stories now, right? And tell them. And it's just this really cool ripples, right? And propagation. I just see like trees, right? Like the poplar tree, right? Like it's all the same tree, and it grows and it goes and it creates these massive forests, all from, right, this one tree, because it's cared for. All the little seedlings are cared for by that one tree, and the forest grows and nurtures, and right, it's beautiful. And so that's what I feel like this conversation has been, and that's what I feel is just so important. That's the nugget I'm taking away from this conversation today.
That's beautiful.
I love that. When we first started the podcast, we used to have every single one of our guests nominate someone to be a guest on the show, and it was a beautiful thing because it introduced us to so many women we wouldn't have ordinarily met. And for the first year or two, we talked about creating an actual family tree from the sisterhood of where it started. Who introduced us to who. And we started to do it, and it just grew so fast that we couldn't. And I love what you just said about it growing into a forest, because I do really feel like that's the truth now. Like, there is no way we could connect the dots anymore. There's just so many different branches and leaves. So I love that analogy of the tree growing into the forest, because I do feel like that's what we've done.
I feel like we've done that here, Louise, in a way, in our little way. With, we're coming up on, by the time this comes out, we're going to be pretty close to our 200th episode, and all of the conversations, all of the different lives that have come in to share their stories with us, and that we've been able to create that space where they've been heard, where they get to share. And yeah, there's something very meaningful about the concept of being seen, heard, and valued. And I think that that's what everybody here is doing in our work, but also as humans. So Nancy and Amy obviously will include information about the Passionistas in the show notes. So this will come out in January. Anything that is coming up in 2026 that you want to be sure that people know about?
We would love to offer your listeners a free gift.
Take two.
Take two.
See, this is where editing is helpful.
Humanity, right?
It's always the entertainment people that don't forget to turn their phone.
We would love to offer your listeners a free gift if they go to the passionistasproject.com/30-days.journal. They can download a free journal that will help them start to uncover their story. So we can encourage women to really think about what that story is and start to share it with the world. So, and as for 2026, we have all sorts of amazing events and things planned. So stay tuned.
Perfect.
Yeah, another anthology book coming out. We had a international #1 best-selling anthology book come out this year, and we're going to do another one next year called Awakening Your Power, Volume 2, stories of women stepping into their power. The first book was amazing, and we're going to help more women write their memoirs, and we're going to use our interview skills to make it easy and faster for them to do it. And we're going to build the sisterhood and create a space where more women come. We really are not growing for the sake of growing. We're growing so that there's more opportunity and that ripple effect and that forest get bigger. So we welcome anybody who is looking for a place to come and sign up for free and get to know everybody, introduce themselves, and see who we can connect you with.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, listener, for joining us today for this passionate conversation. It was fantastic. Take care, everyone. Bye for now.
And that's all for this week's episode of the Empowered and Embodied Show. We hope today's episode has sparked something within you. Remember, we're all on this journey together. If something did resonate with you today, why not share it with a friend who might need to hear it too? You can find us everywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a review. Your feedback not only helps others find the show, but also helps us understand what's most valuable to you. Until next time, be kind to yourself, stay curious, and remember, we're walking right alongside you. Thanks for being part of our community.